Welcome to my first online restorative yoga session. Restorative yoga is mostly about learning to relax, so I'm hoping that by the end of this session that's where you'll be. We're practicing a number of yoga postures, but variations on yoga postures that are completely supported. So the idea is to be relaxed and still and hold the postures. In this session we'll hold them for about 5 minutes, but we can do longer. And in order to hold a posture for any length of time, you need to be comfortable, you need to be fully supported. So that's why I've got lots of props and cushions and blankets and towels. So I normally use plenty of things like bolsters, yoga blocks, yoga bricks and so forth. If you've got a decent yoga bolster, that's brilliant, and you can use one of these. I know one or two of you do have, but most people won't. And like all the good COVID at home programs, what we're trying to do is to practice restorative yoga using whatever you happen to have lying around the house. So we'll get rid of this. And what we're going to use, the one thing I do hope you have is a yoga mat. So we'll be using a yoga mat instead of a bolster. And in addition, as I say, we've got whatever you can find around the house really in terms of comfortable support. So we're talking about blankets. If you've got a nice large cotton blanket, that's great. What I've got here is a nice large cotton beach towel. I've also got a couple of these very light little blankets, sort of fleece blankets. These are very cheap from some online shop. And cushions. So you should have some cushions lying around on these sofas. I'll put these all back over here so we'll get more tidy. So the main prop usually is the bolster, so we're going to use the mat in place of the bolster. So to do that, we take a rolled mat and you want to just plump it up a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. And that's why I'm using a nice large blanket, or in this case, a beach towel. So fold it up so it's about the length of your mat, and then just placing it lengthwise, I think you can see that properly, over the mat. Okay, and that's probably fine. If you want it to be thicker, we'll find that out as we go through the session. Use another towel or another blanket. So actually I might do that today. So I've got two towels on here, and what you've got is a nice sort of padded thing we can rest on, we can lie back on, do all sorts of things. So I'll put that to one side to start with. And what we're going to be doing is, let's say, a shortish session. We'll be holding the postures for about 5 minutes. Once you know this session of postures, you can do it in your own time and you can spend longer in each of the postures. So I will be producing, and what will be available when this video is available is a handout that describes the different postures, and then you can just do it in your own time. So we're going to begin the session with Balasana, a child posture. So we're telling a little story here today. We're thinking about starting off like a small seed, and then during the session we're going to be just opening out. It's spring, the sun's out, so we've been asleep all the winter. We're slowly going to be waking up and emerging. So we'll begin as a seed in our child posture. Now, many of you can go into a standard child posture, but I'd like to do a supported version today. It helps to lengthen out the back as well. So this is where the bolster comes in. So placing the bolster on the floor between the knees, and kind of first variation on this will be just simply lying down over your makeshift bolster. If that's too deep for you, it's a little bit too strong to get into that position, then what we want to do is to lift the bolster up. And this is where the cushions start coming in, so we can put a cushion, maybe a couple of cushions underneath, and we can try that. So that's a lot better. Now you might find, many of you, that this is too strong on the knees. This is putting too much on the quadricep muscles. So we want to lift up a little bit, and we can use another cushion to go underneath the seat on the ankles or your yoga block, or another blanket rolled up underneath the knees is very nice. Takes a little bit of the strain off the knee joints. And the third place that people often have trouble with is the feet pointing out behind you, a little bit strong. So assuming you've got all these different blankets at home, a rolled up blanket goes nicely under the ankles. So that feels really nice. You can have the chin over the end of the mat here, or you can turn the head to one side or the other. If you're turning the head to one side, then just make sure you turn it to face the other way about halfway through. So take your own time to come into the posture. The idea, as I say, is to be completely supported and completely comfortable. So I'm just going to sit up so I can talk to you. What you often find is that after a minute or two, there are a few little areas that are niggling, a little bit uncomfortable. So at that point, do feel free to adjust. You might find it's just the mind playing tricks, so you could just hold off and see whether that discomfort disappears. But otherwise, feel free to get into a better position. And then I'm assuming you're now lying down in some version of Balasana, child posture. And maybe you've got your head turned to one side. So you could take a few deep inhales, slow exhales. Allow the body to settle. And then take a little while to look around the body with the mind's eye, seeing how the body's feeling at this time. Looking for areas where you're feeling tense, uncomfortable. And then slowly, just focusing on those areas, you can visualize taking the breath to those areas of the body. Allow those muscles to slowly release. So that indeed you feel that the body is sinking down into the earth. So remember, we're a seed lying partially submerged on the ground, resting on the warm earth. And we're lying nice and still. And the breathing is settling. You can become aware of the breath, of your natural breath. Focusing a little bit more on the out breath. And with each out breath, the body settling a little bit more. Bringing the body to complete stillness. So in my sessions that I do on Wednesday afternoons, normally we have a little relaxing music in the background, which can help. So if you're doing this yourselves in the future, feel free to pick some music that makes you relax. And give yourself time to relax into all these postures. If you're at home with somebody, then just make sure that I'm not going to disturb you for half an hour or so. And then take your time. Because none of us have really anywhere to go or anything to do, or at least not for the period of this session. So lying here on the earth, you can visualize feeling the sunlight on your back, the warmth of the sun on your back. And the slight coolness of the earth beneath you. And as you breathe, thinking a little bit more about the inhalation now. And feeling the breath coming into the upper back. So with each inhalation, the upper back is expanding a little bit. Shoulder blades are moving slightly apart. So we've been here about 5 minutes, and as I say, when you do this yourselves, maybe you could stay here for a bit longer, be here for 10 minutes or so. After a while, you might well start to feel discomfort in the legs, in the feet. So feel free to come out in your own time in any case, but we'll come out slowly now. So try not to rush out of a posture. I know some people have a tendency to suddenly jump up when they've been lying down or holding a posture for a while. But try to move out of all these postures nice and slowly and deliberately. Think about how you're going to come out of the posture with the least effort. And we're just going to push up in this case. Lift up to an upright position. And then come forward onto hands and knees. And you could remove anything that you've got behind the knees, under the feet. And then if you've got space, you can stretch out the left leg, tuck the toes under, push away through the left heel, gently stretching out the hamstrings. And then repeat on the other side. Tucking the right toes under, pushing away with the right heel. So we're this little seed awakening, and as we open up, we're going to stretch our legs out in front. So I'll move these cushions over here and stretch my legs out. And let's get the blood flowing through the feet. Stretching the toes. Roll the feet around the ankles a little bit. And we're going to awaken slowly. So we're going to come now into a forward bend, a seated forward bend. And once more, it's going to be supported. So even if you do have long hamstrings and you can find a full bend like this very easy, just today we can reuse the bolster substitute. So I shall get these cushions back. So we're all different, and exactly how you set up these props will vary very much depending upon your own flexibility, how you're feeling today. I might want to put something under the knees. I can again use one of these rolled blankets to go under the knees so that I'm not straining my hamstrings too much. Actually, I might need two. And I want to be able to come into a position where the upper body is leaning forwards under gravity, so I can actually pull the feet back a little bit more to help me come forwards. If that's a little bit difficult for you, then we lift up the seat. So here's a little meditation cushion I can sit on. If you want to come up even higher, I have some books over here. So these act as good yoga blocks. So yeah, 3 thick books. If I sit on like this, they probably will fly apart and I'll go flying. So you want to wrap something around it. So I'll use this blanket. I just wrap the blanket around the books. And then that makes a good solid yoga brick. You'll probably find you do a lot of fiddling around the first time you do this to find out what's right for you in any given posture. Once you've done it a couple of times, though, you'll get to know exactly what you need. So I'm putting these cushions in to get a little bit more height in my bolster. Bending my knees. I can put this cushion on here, that's just my forehead on. Whatever it takes, really. So the body is extending forwards, forehead supported, and having a nice relaxed variation on seated forward bend. So once more, take a minute or two just to relax into the posture, just to check everything's feeling okay, make any further adjustments you need. We want to be in a position where the body is fully supported and where we're using gravity to help to lengthen out the spine. And we can use the breath, so with the inhalation we can think about just lengthening up the front of the body a little bit, and then on the exhalation a little bit fractionally extra forward fold. And then once more we're coming to a state of stillness. Because in all these postures we're aiming to bring the body to stillness. And with the body stilled, we're then evening out, smoothing off, slowing down the breath. So if you can think of the body being as still as a mountain, and the breath is like the surface of a mountain lake. Gradually evening out, smoothing out the ripples. And as the breath slows and smooths out, so you may find that the mind slows and smooths out. And all those little ripples in the mind of agitated thoughts, just like the ripples on the lake, spread out and start to disappear. They won't go all together, there's always a few little disturbing thoughts. But whenever you become aware of them, just acknowledge them and then let them drift away back to that stillness. So we're still in contact with the earth, beginning to open out. You can still feel that heat from the sun on the back of the body, on the back of the neck. But the legs are stretching out. And we're starting to awaken. And once more, we can hold this. You can hold this as long as you wish. But for this session, we're going to slowly come back out. And we're going to think about how we're going to move first before we move. Pressing against the floor or against the bolster starts to lift the upper body. And you can bend the legs, bringing the feet flat to the floor. And maybe you could bring the hands onto the knees and just take a couple of breaths. So as you breathe in, stretching up, opening the chest. As you breathe out, just holding onto the knees, pushing back, breathing in, lifting up the front of the body, breathing out, lengthening back, a little bit like cat-cow flexions here, so moving the spine. Okay, and finishing back in upright position. And our next posture will be a seated twist. And we can use the bolster roughly as we've already got it. And get rid of the books. And we're going to start by just sitting at the base of the bolster with the legs bent. So the twist is happening from the base of the spine up to the shoulders. And we're having the hips, so the hips are slightly, or more or less stacked, more or less one over the other. And then we can place the hands either side of the mat, the bolster, turning the body to face up along the bolster, lengthen upwards, and then laying the front of the body down onto the mat. So the height of the mat is up to you. This is quite low. I could build this up a little bit higher if I felt that would be useful. So once more, as with all twists, we lengthen up the front of the body, lengthen the spine first, and then lean down. And you can bring the twist all the way up to the neck by turning the head away from the knees. If that's too strong, just bring the head to wherever it's comfortable. You can have the chin over the end or turn towards the legs. Again, make any final adjustments. Just feel that you're stable. This one can seem a little bit unstable if you're not careful. So just check that everything's nice and stable so you feel perfectly safe. And once more, to begin with, use the breath to move into the posture. Each inhalation is a little extra lengthen of the spine. And each exhalation of sinking down. Being aware of how the body's feeling. We're in a twist now. It's a little bit different from what we've been doing. Be aware of where the twist is happening in the spine. So we're elongating the spine, we're twisting the spine a little bit, putting a little bit of sort of twisting stress into the joints, which is good for the joints, and we're just working on the what's the word? The discs. That's the word. Twists are great for removing tension from the lower back in particular. And you can hold this for 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. And then when you're ready, press down through the hands. Again, we can think about how we want to do this. I'm going to turn away from the bolster and move around to the other side. Just getting the hip into the base of the bolster, turning to face up along the bolster, lengthening up and laying the front of the body down. And make sure this time you're turning the head in the opposite direction. So being aware of little stretches that are happening in the body. I'll just come up so I can speak to you, but just hold in the twist for a little bit longer. So we're undergoing a certain amount of stretching in these restorative postures. Mostly we're thinking about relaxing and not stretching too much, so we're not working, we're not aiming to have any significant stretching happening. That's more like you might have in something called yin yoga. Restorative yoga is more about just being rather than doing, is what they usually say. But here you will be aware of that's a little bit of a gentle pull around the sides, along the spine. Coming into these different postures, we're working the body through a lot of sort of standard positions that have been developed within Hatha Yoga over the centuries. And that's rebalancing the body. It's teaching the body how it can move. Teaching the body about the positions it holds. And then at the end, bringing us back to a state of equilibrium. So when you've held the other side for about an equal amount of time to the first side, once more, slowly sitting back up. And then we'll just dismantle this little pile here. I think we'll keep the two sofa cushions though. And we're going to come into a reclining position. So we're opening right up now. We're going to come back into a little bit of a back bend. And we will use, I think I'll use this little zafu here. So we want the bolster raised once more. And this time we'll sit with our backs to the bolster. Have the legs bent to lean back, and then lean back along the bolster. It's really comfortable. You could come all the way down and have the bolster flat if you wanted to. And then we're going to come into a cobbler pose. So this is a reclining cobbler pose. We bring the feet together and allow the knees to roll out to the sides. But we want to support the legs. So even if you've got a nice sort of open cobbler posture normally, because we'll hold this for about 5 minutes or so. It will become too much for strain. So you want something to support the legs, and I've got these cushions in this case, so I'm going to bring these cushions in something like this, so that the legs are supported. So you might choose to open legs out to what's your comfortable maximum, and then maybe bring them back a little bit and then put in the support. But if in the course of lying here it starts to become too strong, then perfectly fine to just put a little bit extra in there, lift them back. And indeed, if this becomes too strong, you could alternatively stretch the legs out and come into a kind of fish pose. So I'm going to bring my hands down to the sides, palms face up, arms a little away from the body. If you've got an eye pillow, it's really quite nice to lay an eye pillow across the eyes. Or you can just work the face, just work the lower jaw. Check there's no tension being held in the face. Check you're not clamping the teeth together. Take a couple of deep breaths, breathing into the rib cage, lengthening up along the front of the body. So now we've turned over, we're facing up to the sun. You can feel the warmth of the sun on the front of the body now, on the face. If you want, you could imagine you're outside, lying in a nice meadow somewhere. Smell of the flowers, sound of a bee, wind in the trees. So this is a particularly relaxing position, one that's nice to hold for a good long time. And a lot of these postures, ones we've been doing, have been focusing on the heart area. Heart area to the front here, in the forward bend in Balasana, it focuses on the heart area at the back of the body. So that's where your emotions are held. Sort of relaxing that area around the heart, just releasing any pent-up emotions. Taking the breath into the area of the heart. Remembering that you've got nowhere to go, nothing to do, and you can just lie here, fully supported. And once more, in your own time, in your own home, staying here as long as suits you. And you can, of course, pick any one of these postures and just do that one posture. There's no reason why not. But I'm going to come up out of this one now, so I'm going to just stretch the legs out first and push away through the heels into my modified fish posture. This is a nice alternative to the one we've just done. And then bringing the feet flat to the floor, I'm going to slowly push myself up onto the elbows and my hands. And then I think the last one for today is going to be a reclining, well, inversion, an inverted posture, for which I need a chair, which I forgot to have handy. So if you'll just bear with me one moment. Okay, so here we are. I've got my chair. This is a very handy straight back chair. Alternative is to do legs up the wall. So usual way to get onto the chair is to just come back onto your elbows, spin around, bring the feet up. So a bit of adjustment will likely be needed. Now I'm fortunate because I do have a chair through which I can poke my feet. That's quite handy. If you haven't, well, you might need to sit back a little bit further. So the adjustment depends on how long your leg is compared with how high the chair is. So if your leg's a little bit, well, if the chair's a little bit too high, you might find the edges of the chair going to just bite into your calf muscles. So what's quite nice to do in any case is to lift up the pelvis. So I'm going to do that by using this cushion. Makes it into a little bit more of an inversion if we can get the pelvis higher than the heart. So actually the best way into it is to sit sideways, get the legs up onto the chair first, and then we can pull the cushion in under. So that's a lot better. If your legs are a bit longer and knees are a bit too high, then put a cushion on top of the chair. So I'm hoping you can see me down here. I'm not quite sure whether you can or not, but so this is nice and comfortable. So I've got my pelvis on the cushion, I've got my legs on the chair. Take the arms out to the sides, palms face up. And once more, let's work the jaw slightly from side to side. Relax the face, close the eyes. Now you may have noticed that seeds and don't usually put their roots into the air, so this one's gone out of that story a little bit, but we're really completely opening up now, opening the chest. Feeling the sunlight full on the body. And feeling any tension that's in the legs, draining down the legs, down to the hips, draining down the body, flowing down through the shoulders into the earth. And just holding this position as long as you wish. So I'm going to slowly come out of this myself now. You can stay here if you wish. I'm just going to bring I'm going to pull the cushion out from underneath first. And then I'm going to bring the knees into the chest and roll over to one side or the other. So you can roll over into the recovery position and hold there for a little bit. Before sitting back up. So I hope you enjoyed this session. As I say, there will be a handout on the web page that describes these different postures. If you want to repeat it's in your own time at home, or just pick one or two of the postures out. So if we finish bringing the hands together in front of the heart, and just sit comfortably, giving a little bit time to self-observation. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.